today we will see the broad divisions of the chapter, how the different verses flow within the chapter, those translations in the chapter, and then thematic study of the chapter 1. The broad divisions in chapter 1 are two parts. Introduction to the book is the first part of the chapter 1, and the second part of the chapter 1 is the introducing the outer layer of the conversation in Srimad Bhagavatam. How there's an inner layer of conversation in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the core layer, which is the discussion between Shukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. However, in order to introduce that inner layer of conversation, we are having an outer layer of conversation presented by Suta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya, whose conversation is primarily being recorded by Vyasadeva in this Srimad Bhagavatam. The subject matter of the book is discussed, which is Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. However, the terminology used to introduce Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam in the very first verse is not just directly by his name, but by who he is. That is the supreme absolute truth. And we will see in detail today what does the verse 1 discuss about the supreme absolute truth. And then the first three verses also discusses the speciality of Srimad Bhagavatam because it is compiled in the spiritual maturity of Srila Vyasadeva. It's relished by Shukadev Goswami. It is a rasa shastra. It has a lot of mellows. It is a nectar, and it is even enjoyed by liberated souls. And we will also discuss the three levels of audience, that anyone who is willing to hear attentively with devotion in chronology is considered as a qualified student. And the next level of audience, the more they will benefit if their heart is devoid of envy, basically material attachments. And to their degree one has advanced in devotion to the level of bhava and prema, they can actually relish even higher rasas. Actually, they'll be the only ones who will be able to relish the rasa part of it. So the blessings given to each of these audiences, at least the uprooting of threefold miseries, the ability to tolerate the onslaught of the threefold miseries will develop in a person who hears attentively with devotion. And of course, devotion to Krishna will also grow. As it grows, then envy will reduce. As the envy reduces and the devotion to Krishna continues, if a person eventually comes to the higher stages of devotion, then that person can also relish the highest rasas of relationship with Krishna. So in the outer layer of Bhagavatam, we will be introduced who is Suta Goswami, who are these sages of Naimisharanya to some extent. And there we won't have a elaborate history of those personalities, but we will be introduced to these characters of the Srimad Bhagavatam, who will play such an important role throughout the Bhagavatam, forming that outer layer of the conversation in the Srimad Bhagavatam, guiding us and telling us what Shukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj actually spoke. So Suta Goswami is introduced in this chapter, we will see now. And the sages of Naimisharanya are also introduced, and their qualities are discussed throughout the chapter. We did do an exercise on the WhatsApp group. I posted that how you can read the chapter and then look for the qualities of Suta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya, which are mentioned in these translations directly and indirectly. And then the sages ask those famous 6 questions. We will see them today. And also the chapter begins with absolute truth and ends with absolute truth. If you see the translation, it says, Krishna, the absolute truth, after he disappeared, where has Dharma taken shelter? So it begins with absolute truth and ends with a particular question which points in the direction of Srimad Bhagavatam, from where eventually from chapter 5, 4, everything will sprout. So these first three chapters, especially the first chapter, is like the seed from which the whole tree of Srimad Bhagavatam is going to sprout. So it's very important. So let's get into the chapter 1 verse flow outlines. I'm pretty sure many of you have gone through the translations of the chapter 1. So if you had, then it will be very helpful for you to figure out this particular flow chart. Chapter 1 is a very small verse. As I said, it's a seed chapter. So it's 23 verses. But from here, everything is going to come. So these are very important verses, both in terms of the subject matter and the mood they set. Verses 1 to 3, again, I'm repeating, are the subject matter, speciality, and blessings. We will see in detail soon. And between verse 4 and 5, the scene is set, that how the sages have assembled in Naimisharanya and they're all willing to hear. And then The Goswami's qualifications is introduced in verses 6 to 8. And then from verses 9 onwards until the verse 23, the sages of Naimisharanya get to business. They start asking questions. And in between, they express their eagerness, they express their curiosity, they express their conviction, they express their gratitude, respect, all of those things we will be seeing in those verses between 9 and 23. And between those verses 9 and 23 are the 6 questions by the sages. So, what are those 6 questions? So, in verse 9, they ask, what is the ultimate good for all people, for all time to come? So, that's called as Shreyas. Shreyas means long term benefit, Preyas means short term benefit. So, they are inquiring about Shreyas, that is the ultimate good for a long time to come for all people. And then they ask, what is the essence? What is the essence of all the scriptures? We will see the verse flow, why they're asking, and how those verses flow soon. So they ask Saram, the essence of all kinds of scriptures and purpose of Lord Krishna's appearance. And then they ask, okay, Krishna appeared. However, before that, the world was created. So how did all these creation come up? So how does that Supreme Lord make the material creation possible? So then they are inquiring about Kala, Purusha avatars. And also they ask about, okay, after the creation is done, then the Lord comes very regularly to enact his pastimes in this world to attract the minds and the hearts of all kinds of people. So discuss about those wonderful pastimes. So they are discussing about Leela avatars, various incarnations of the Supreme Lord who come to perform pastimes in this world. And finally, as I said earlier, they ask about where has Dharma taken shelter after the disappearance of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So that is also that is the last question. And we will see the answers in the course of chapter 2 and chapter 3. The following 2 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapter 2 and 3, will address the answers for all of these questions. Who will address? Suta Goswami will give the answers. The questions are all asked by sages of the Naimisharanya. Answers will be given by Suta Goswami in a very direct and brief manner, thorough still in terms of its quality and depth. However, more questions will lead to the rest of the Bhagavatam. We will discuss that as we go through the chapters. This is the chapter summary, verse 1 to 3, introduction, 4 to 5, setting the scene, 6 to 8, introducing Suta Goswami, and questions by the sages. And these are the 6 questions. And now we will get into the actual translations of the verse itself. So, getting into the verse 1.1.1, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So that's literally, technically not part of the verse. It's part of the invocation for Srimad Bhagavatam. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudev, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, that is Bhagavate, I offer Namaha, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So this is the translation for that. After that, the actual verse begins, Satyam Param Dhimahi. So the Sanskrit words are not going to be in the order. If you see Satyam Param Dhimahi is the end of the first verse. If you have access to it, the Sanskrit, you can look at it. However, when Prabhupada translates it into English, there is a rearrangement. So I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna. Why? Because he is Param. And not just Param, but he is Satyam Param, the absolute truth. Truth is Satyam, Param is absolute. So he is the absolute truth. Not, and there are explanations of that more. And Dhimahi means meditating. So this word Dhimahi also denotes that Srimad Bhagavatam is a commentary on the Gayatri Mantra, because Gayatri Mantra also ends with Dhimahi, and Vedanta Sutra begins with Janmadi Asya Yataha. So Bhagavatam is glorified in other Puranas like Matsya Purana and Padma Purana, that how Bhagavatam is a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, and it is also an explanation for the Gayatri Mantra, or a commentary of the Gayatri Mantra. So that is why we will see the indications of that in the very first verse. It begins with Janmadhyasyataha and ends with Dhimahi. Begins with Vedanta Sutra and ends with meditation, because knowledge should be leading to meditation. The idea of knowledge is that it should make us remember Krishna. And that is why it begins with the knowledge of Krishna, Janmadhyasyataha, and ends with Dhimahi, which is a meditation. So here Prabhupada is saying, I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna. Who is he? Because here it is not mentioned as Lord Sri Krishna. It just says Satyam Param. That means the absolute truth. But it is very clear as part of the invocation who is that supreme absolute truth that we are all speaking about. And it will become more clear as we read the other parts of the translation. And so the primeval cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. Janma Adi Asya Yataha. Janma Adi means the word Adi includes Janma, and that is the creation, and also maintenance, which is or otherwise called as sustenance, and also the destruction, which is annihilation. So Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. So that is why all the three are indicated as Janma Adi. Asya of what? Manifested universes of the material world. Taha, from whom is it coming? From him. Who is that? The absolute truth whom we are meditating upon. From him comes all the manifested universes, not just they come. He's not just the cause of creation and then it's out of his control. No, he maintains it. And also, when it needs to be annihilated, it is only him who can take it back. So, in that way, this is the first explanation of what is that absolute truth, what is the ability of that absolute truth. And directly, they are not starting from the spiritual world because we have very little or no information or realization about the spiritual world. But we are all living in the material world, and we do know through our sense perception that this material world exists. So, that is why the absolute truth, who is supreme and beyond, is explained in the context of the material world. It starts from this world, that which we can relate to immediately, and eventually it will go to a place that which we cannot relate to just through our senses. In this very verse, it will start from the gross and it will go to the spiritual platform, transcendental way. And then the next understanding of absolute truth, who is the absolute truth? It is he is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestation. It is not that he created and it is out of his control. No, it's all within his control, within his consciousness. Yeah, he is aware of everything that is going on here. And what is the other nature of the absolute truth? He is independent in creating these. He has not, so somebody may say, oh, he has taken help of Brahmaji, he has taken help of all the Mahat Tattva. Without those elements, how he would have created. So that is why in the purport, Prabhupada says he is not like the scientists who create things, but those very raw materials, they don't produce them. So he is an independent creator. The Mahatva comes from him. Brahmaji also comes from him. Everything actually comes from him. So in that sense, he is an independent source or cause of all that he creates. He is not dependent on anyone. To that extent, Lakshmi Devi is sitting at the lotus feet of Garbhodakshai Vishnu and massaging him, but he does not need the help of Lakshmi Devi to create Brahma. That's why the name of Brahma is Swayambhu. He is he was created not by the regular way of copulation. Brahmaji was created from was born on the lotus flower without involving Lakshmi Devi. So Vishnu is independent creator. So he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. In that sense, we are all not independent because we have dependency because we have come from someone and we don't create anything on our own. So the other definition of absolute truth is it is he who first imparted the Vedic knowledge into the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. So it's not just things come from him, all knowledge also comes from him. What is the benefit of just having inert matter? So the living entities also need spiritual knowledge in this world. After creating this dark, dingy material world, which is not self-effulgent like the spiritual world, which is exactly opposite of the spiritual world. Spiritual world is self-effulgent, and there is Sachitananda Vigraha. The people also have the ability to have knowledge and they are fully aware of the spiritual position. But here we get covered, we have ignorance. That is why we sing this verse before speaking Om Agyanatimirandasya. So all this knowledge, somebody may say it comes from Brahmaji, but that is why it is very clearly clarified here. Even the knowledge of Brahmaji comes from that supreme absolute truth. That means he existed before the creation of the material universe. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. So why into illusion? Because he is very difficult to understand or impossible to understand without he revealing himself. So that is why people think if they are very and intelligent and wise, and if they assume just because they are materially very qualified and intelligent, that they'll be able to grasp the supreme absolute truth, then they get bewildered. And who? Even the great sages and the demigods, because human beings are like ants in comparison to the demigods. Like in my table, maybe some ants are scrolling. They have no idea what's happening here. For them, from their perspective, my laptop looks like a Meru mountain and my beadbag looks like another hill. So there is the perspective for the ant is nothing. It's not even a fraction of the reality that it is experiencing from its perspective. So when we try to see cosmology and all of these things from our perspective, we are like ants trying to look at the world. So the cosmology of Bhagavatam is also from Adi Bhautik perspective, not from Adi Bhautik perspective, it's from Adi Daivika perspective. It's the vision of the demigods. They are able to see much more. We can hardly see few meters away. Our That is why here Krishna is saying, Vyasadeva is saying, what is absolute truth? Even great sages and demigods get placed into illusion. And he will explain this in the whole Bhagavatam. The whole Bhagavatam is an explanation of this one verse. That is also one way to look at the Bhagavatam. We will see how Indra gets bewildered, how great sages like Sukracharya gets bewildered. He is also considered a sage in his respects. And then we will see Vyasadeva himself gets bewildered, forget about others. And Brahmaji gets bewildered. So great demigods, great sages, no one can actually completely understand the supreme absolute truth. What do you mean by getting placed into illusion? Means it's not that they fall into material illusion as such. They get bewildered about the nature of the absolute truth. And that's why example is given. What kind of illusion do they get placed? As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. We all have mostly this experience of water seen in fire. If you have even a heater in this like summer winter season, even if within your homes you run a heater, and then if sometimes you look at it above the heater, you will see flames, like water kind of illusion is created. The mirage is created even within the house, but usually it's found in the deserts, that from a distance it seems like there is water. And this is little rare, land seen on water. Especially this happens to sailors. So when they are in a vast ocean, it looks like at a distance there is an island, and then they'll get distracted because of that. So that's why it's land seen on water. That means the reality gets covered for us. We see something else and assume that is reality. Similarly, people understand absolute truth by their own ability, and they think this is all is absolute truth. God is like that, God is like this. Anyone becomes a philosopher when we speak about God, because they all have certain ideas and they think this is how God is. God created, but he has no control over the creation, or there is no God, and all kinds of understandings that people have. And they assume that it is the absolute truth. So that is why it is even great sages and demigods get placed into illusion. Whatever they see through their senses and acquire knowledge, they think that is the absolute truth. But however, the absolute truth is different. How the mirage is different from water, and the mirage is different from land that our eyes are seeing. Similarly, the absolute truth is also the source of all the material universes. However, we all in this world get bewildered because of this material universe, because it is temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of material nature. In one sense, it is unreal. However, it appears so factual that everyone within this material creation is taken for a ride. Life after life after life, we are continuously bewildered, and we take these material manifestations very seriously. Though they are all the temporary manifestations of the three modes of material nature, eventually they will all merge in the Mahat Tattva and become Pradhan. However, currently we take it very seriously because that is how we get put into illusion. And he's saying that is how great the Supreme Lord is. The whole material universe is in his illusion in one sense. And I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna. But he is not affected by that illusion, because he lives in his transcendental abode. It's not that everything is about this. So far, if you see, everything we discussed is about the material world. So we may think Krishna's existence is only in relation to the material universes. Then he will not be called as absolute truth. He will become relative truth. So that is why here in the last line it is clarified. Absolute truth means it is not there is no point in just describing absolute truth only in terms relative to the material existence, because we only understand the material existence. So far absolute truth was explained in relation to the temporary material world, but he is not relative truth, he is absolute truth. That so he needs to exist beyond this. So that is why he is eternally existence. There is no cause of creation, sustenance, destruction, and there is no place for illusion, and it is a transcendental abode beyond this material world. So that's why finally that absolute nature of the absolute truth is explained here. I therefore meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. And again Prabhupada is repeating for emphasis, Satyam Param Dhimahi, that I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. So we haven't even scratched the surface of the first translation, but this is a little, like kind of an introduction. So you can go read the purports. And in the future, maybe when we have extra classes, we could also discuss the commentary of Srimad Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on this one. He has given 5 different explanations for this, and they're very interesting. And if any of you have Bhagavad Subodhini, they have it in their appendix. You can refer to that, and we will also have a lecture, maybe question willing, a separate session. Anything before we get into verse 2 translation?
Prabhu, I had a question on the first verse where you said, it is he who imparted knowledge into the heart of Brahmaji.
Okay.
There, the verse says very specifically Vedic knowledge, right? That he imparted Vedic knowledge. And
Yes.
then you also said that there is no point just having inert matter. So therefore, the Supreme Lord also gave spiritual knowledge to starting with Brahma and then all the living entities. So I guess the question I have is, even outside of Vedic knowledge, we see lots of knowledge, right? Even now we have a lot of scientific knowledge and we have so many different types of knowledge. Obviously, everything comes from the Supreme Lord, but at that time, is that all knowledge that was given, or some knowledge comes later? Like people get their own knowledge at a different point of time that is not covered in the knowledge that was given to Brahma, or it doesn't have to be connected that way?
Thank you, Bro. I'll try to answer. To some extent, the knowledge we call as knowledge is considered as ignorance, in spiritual terms. Like the knowledge that is used for the functioning of the material world, yes, it is knowledge, but it is also on a certain level considered as ignorance. So that's not necessarily given by Krishna, in the sense like the sun is the cause of both the light and the darkness, but the absence of spiritual knowledge and with the matter and the inert or innate intelligence that the soul has, it gets read towards matter, and it does have the ability to be intelligent. It is the nature of the soul to be intelligent, but that intelligence gets towards matter, and then it starts developing much more things. If you see the Bhagavad Gita, all about Krishna speaks about the material nature is, what is that? How does the verse start? Bhumirapo analo vayur kamano buddhirevacha ahankara ityame bhinna prakriti rashtada. Just he gives 8 things. He says this is all the material nature is. And if you see the chemical composition tables, we have, even we get, they keep discovering new elements also. But we have like more than 100 elements, and then we have more details of all of those things. But the idea that Krishna is giving this knowledge is to understand the material nature to that extent, so that we want to get released from that material nature. But the detailed so-called knowledge of the scientist is to actually control the material world, which will actually lead to further bondage. So that is why that knowledge is called as ignorance. Though it is knowledge on a certain extent, it is just coming from a place of wanting to control and enjoy the material world, which eventually leads to further bondage. So that knowledge comes from turning away from Krishna. So still the source of everything is Krishna. However, that does not mean the ignorance also is given by Krishna. It is the soul has the ability, when like Krishna says in CC also we see this, where Krishna is like a sun. Krishna Surya Sama, Maya Hai Andhakar. So yes, the sun is the source of darkness, but this kind of knowledge is not necessarily need to be given by Krishna. Just by turning away from him and by looking at the manifestations of the matter, they get bewildered, and from their own intelligence a lot of more things comes, and they get wrapped up in that whole thing for the rest of the journey.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. That makes sense. Because like we can So that means at some future points in time, we can all develop our own different sets of knowledge. But that's mostly ignorance, like you said, right? Like
Yeah.
this
The
world
spiritual
has
knowledge, the
such knowledge.
essential spiritual knowledge to get released from the material bondage
Yeah.
is given by Krishna.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Mother Gail, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Well, yeah, just to follow up, I think you answered my question actually, but I was going to ask that, therefore, would you define Vedic knowledge as any knowledge that is in support of our liberation from this material world?
Yeah, essentially, that is the primary knowledge that Krishna offers to Brahmaji.
Yeah, but for it to be qualified as Vedic, it would have to support one's liberation.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
the
it is
ultimate aim should be liberation, because the Vedas also discuss Ayurveda and Jyotisha and all of these things. But the overall idea is leading one to liberation.
Yeah, that's Krishna's purpose.
Yes.
That's his purpose even for Jyoti Shastra or any Vedic Shastra.
Yes,
right?
all the Vedas and all of those things, it's all so that there can be proper execution of dharma in this world while living, so that eventually all of those activities, because we all come with desires to enjoy in this world, but the idea is so that the enjoyment can be done in such a way that
It promotes liberation.
it promotes liberation.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
So if there is not any, so we will get into the verse 2. So if you have translation and the Sanskrit available with you, please refer to it. So this second verse is basically trying to glorify Srimad Bhagavatam and its speciality. So that's why the first characteristics of Srimad Bhagavatam is like it completely rejects all religious activities which are materially motivated. Dharmaha projita kaitava is cheating. Kaitava dharma means cheating religion. Projita means rejection. So this rejects all kinds of dharmas which are cheating. In the ultimate sense, Bhagavatam takes a very high bird's eye viewpoint of life. In that overall ultimate aim of life, anything that does not help one to go towards liberation is considered cheating. Specifically, if people use a religious cover to continue to control and enjoy this world, then it's even worse, because that thing which was supposed to effect release from the material bondage, people end up using those very thing to continue to control and to remain in the bondage of the material world. So that is why Bhagavatam first takes an objection to that. No, the purpose of religion is to lead us back to God. So that is why the first thing that Bhagavatam says is, okay, we don't want all those things, like remove, just get back to the essence. There is a lot of confusion and what do you call mixture. What do we call in the English when there's things that are like adulteration? There is a lot of adulteration in the name of religion. So that is why Bhagavatam is clearing all those adulterations and wants to give us that original knowledge that Krishna gave to Brahmaji. So this Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth. There are many levels of truth, but this propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in the heart. So Atra Parama means this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, Parama, which is understandable by those who are fully pure in heart. Nirmatsaranam satam vedyam. Who can understand vedyam? Satam, who are devotees. And specifically, they are nirmatsarana. They are actually non-envious. Basically, if you read Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that very clearly. Why nirmatsarana? Why non-enviousness? Because in this world, there is always competition for being enjoyment, but for being great, for being famous, but for being powerful. In this way, people are always competing for sense gratification, and that is a sign of envy. So that's why he says one who has actually given up all that, being part of that rat race internally, that they actually want to go behind Krishna. So that's why this particular qualification is a very important qualification to understand Bhagavatam, that nirmatsaranam satam vedyam. And then the highest reality, the highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. That vastavam atra vastu shivadam. Shivadam means that which is welfare for all, like auspicious. And vastu is substance or highest truth. Vastava vastu means the highest truth. Vastu is truth or substance, but vastava vastu means the only real thing, the highest truth. Atra, in this book, it is Srimad Bhagavatam is distinguishing reality from illusion for all of us to understand, for the welfare of everybody. And what is the nature of that truth? Why it is so important to understand the highest truth? Because such truth uproots the threefold miseries. Threefold miseries are Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika. And Srimad Bhagavatam can uproot these threefold miseries for someone who studies it. So the understanding of uprooting is also ability to tolerate. Because if there is a flood, it's not that the devotee won't be affected if they are living in that same particular vicinity. However, the ability to tolerate those threefold miseries and not being overwhelmed by those, and because they say misery is unavoidable, but suffering is could be avoided. So that is what is the Srimad Bhagavatam can equip us to actually able to understand and tolerate the threefold miseries and continue to remain focused in bhakti. And this beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by this beautiful Bhagavatam, because Srimad means that which has Shri. And Shri, one of the translations for Shri is beautiful. So Srimad Bhagavate, this beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva, Maha Muni Krite. Why he's not just Muni, but he is Maha Muni. In Srimad Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says, Muni Nam Vyasoham. Like how I am among all the munis, I am Vyasa. And that is why here Vyasadeva is not calling himself as I compiled this. He says Mahamuni Krit. So everybody knows who is Mahamuni. Because Krishna has clarified in the Bhagavad Gita itself that Mahamuni means that is Vyasa. He is Munina Maham Vyasa. So that's why he is calling himself as Mahamuni Krite. This is written by Srila Vyasadeva himself. And especially in his maturity, this is the last work of his. And is sufficient in itself for God realization. Kim va parair. What is the use of other things? So what is the need of any other scripture? This one book is sufficient for in itself for God realization. Imagine this author who has spent who has compiled so much other literature, and then he is boldly declaring that this is my final work and there is no need of anything else. You can dump all of it and just take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we can also see, and today if we all want to preach, we all write bridge books and we all write so many other things. But Srila Prabhupada wrote Srimad Bhagavatam commentary and had full faith that just by that someone who's completely from a different culture, who he has no idea who are these people, he hasn't met them. And he with conviction, he brings those 3 volumes of Canto 1 and he keeps distributing it. Whoever comes to meet him, he keeps distributing that book and speaks on those books. And based on that, he built Bhagavad Gita, he wrote afterwards. So here Vyasadeva is saying this one book is necessary, is sufficient for God realization. And what happens when somebody listens to it? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture, so Shru Shatam, Ishvara Hridi Avarudyate Atra, by this culture of hearing, the knowledge of the Supreme Lord is established within this heart. By this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord becomes established. Hridi, who gets established? Ishvaraha, Atra, within that person who is having this culture of knowledge, of attentively and submissively hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So again, this is the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam, that it rejects all pretentious religious principles, which gives a cover for people to take shelter of in the name of religion and continue to enjoy and control this world. And the sign of that is there is envy. So who can understand this Bhagavatam is people who are willing to actually let go of that. Nirmat Saranam Satam. And this book actually distinguishes the highest truth from illusion for everyone's welfare. And what is that welfare? That it uproots the threefold miseries. And this beautiful Bhagavatam is compiled by Mahamuni Vyasadeva. And Kimva Parair, it's sufficient for God realization. There is no need of any other scripture. And by attentively and submissively hearing this message, by this culture of knowledge, Ishvara Hridaya Varudyate Atra, the Supreme Lord becomes established in one's heart. And this is verse 2 that we saw. And in the verse 3, that Srila Vyasadeva is going to give blessings, further glories of the book Srimad. He says that, O expert, thoughtful men, O those who are rasikas, those who know how to expert tasters, connoisseurs of spiritual literature. So ahora, so here again and again, muhurasika, please here and again, not just once. Because if you really like something, it's not that I like cheesecake and I eat it once in my life. No, we continue to eat more. Muhuraho rasika. That's why they were saying muhuraho. Again, relish the Srimad Bhagavatam because it is the highest thing that could be relished in this world. He says, what is that Bhagavatam? Pibata Bhagavatam, drink. It's a nectar. Drink. He's not saying read. He's saying drink this Bhagavatam. And what is this Bhagavatam? This is Nigama Kalpatoror Galitam Phalam. This is the mature fruit of the desired tree of the Vedic literatures. Nigama Kalpataror. Nigama is Vedas. Kalpataror is desired tree. The desired tree of Vedic literature. Galitam Phalam. The matured fruit. The most ripened fruit. And why is it so special? Because it Shukamukad. It came from the mouth of the lips of the Shukadeva Goswami. And therefore, because it has come from the lotus lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami, and it is such a mature fruit of the Vedic literatures, because Vedic literatures has Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. But this is Panchama Purushartha. This offers prema to Krishna. This is above all the other Purusharthas. That is why, therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful that Shukadeva Goswami has spoken about it. Because he was above Purusharthas. He was above Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. He had given up everything and he was situated in Parinishthito api Nairgunya. He was completely situated in Parinishtita. He was perfectly situated in the Nairgunya. He was above the influence of the three modes. And even he tasted this. So this fruit has become even more tasteful from the lips of Shukadev Goswami. And it was already relishable, but by him speaking it, it has become even more relishable. Like how the fruits touched by the beak of the parrots, they become more sweeter. They are considered the most sweetest fruit of the tree. Similarly, Shuka means also parrot. That this Shukadev Goswami, who is also like this parrot, he has touched this Bhagavatam, making it more relishable than it was before. It is so relishable that even liberated souls enjoy it. Rasamalayam. Alayam means liberation. So even the liberated souls enjoy this particular juice. So please drink, he's saying. So not just once. Muhuraho rasika. Please continue to. If you have any taste, if you know what is real taste in this world, then you will know to relish this again and again. So for us to lose material taste and to gain spiritual taste as a medicine, that Rupa Goswami says initially the names and the pastimes and the glories of Krishna, Tanna Krishna Nama Charitadi Sukirtananu. So all of these things are like they'll taste bitter initially. However, the more we taste them and the more we become purified of the ignorance, the jaundice, then it becomes actually relishable. And these are the first three verses. If there is anything, any clarifications for the rest of these two verses that we discussed, I can take before we go to the other verses. So here, verse 4 and 5, I hope you all read through the translations because I'm going to breeze through it now. So the storyline is basically all the sages of the Naimisharanya, they are all assembled in Naimisharanya, this forest. Why is Naimisharanya? Because when Krishna appears as a day, he appears in the form of Ekadashi. When he appears in the form of a forest, he appears as Naimisharanya. When he appears as the mantra, then he appears as Hare Krishna mantra. When he actually takes the place, then he appears as, of course, as Vrindavan is different. Here, Naimisharanya is considered the Lord himself as transforms as this forest. Naimisharanya. That is why it is called, it is very important that these devotees have, these sages have come there, that this very Sharanya, this particular Aranya actually, it's not Sharanya, it's Aranya, it's forest, but it is very easy to actually surrender to the Lord in this Aranya. So Naimisharanya. And it's considered as the expansion of the Lord in the form of a forest. And here they have come for 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees. And they have been hearing many scriptures. And then during their hearing, they also had opportunity to hear about various Puranas and everything. And then Suta Goswami gets this message, the cosmic message that Shukadeva Goswami is going to speak to Parikshit Maharaj. So then he goes to hear that. So when he gets back, the sages are all very eager. Okay, you have heard something new, we want to hear from you. So one day after finishing all their morning duties, because they do Agnihotra sacrifices, and they offered a seat of esteem that shows that they respected the speaker, Srila Suta Goswami. It speaks about their character, that how they were respectful and in their process of hearing. And the great sages, they actually made inquiries with great respect about the following matters, which we will see further. So the sages said, respected Suta Goswami. So now they're first going to glorify and show confidence in the qualification of Suta Goswami. You are fully fit to speak to us what Shukadeva Goswami spoke. So that's why they're encouraging him, giving him encouragement and also appreciation and glorification. So you're completely free from all vices. That is the first thing, qualification of a speaker, that they are free from the vices. and you're well versed in scriptures. You also know the scriptures, and you're not just the scriptures famous for religious life, but also the Puranas, the histories, everything he has explained. He has learned from proper parampara, and he has also explained them before. So in this way, he has an experience of hearing and chanting under proper guidance. And he says you are well acquainted with the Vedic knowledge that Vyasadeva gave. And also he has learned from other sages, not just from Vyasadeva. He knows not just spiritual knowledge, but also the various metaphysical and physical knowledges that is coming within the parampara of Vedas. So he was very submissive. So they say that you were so submissive, all your spiritual masters were so pleased with you, they gave you all blessings. So through their blessings, that you have all the knowledge in your heart. So therefore, you can tell us very scientifically whatever you learned from them. So now the idea is they have said that all scriptures, Puranas, histories, physical knowledge, metaphysical knowledge. So after saying the eighth verse, please tell us that all that you have scientifically learned from them. So once you say all that, God knows where he will start and when he will end. So that is why they make it clear. Actually, being blessed with many years, because his father got killed by Balramji. He was attempting to speak the Puranas and then he got killed. So that's why he is saying, we have already lost one speaker, so we give you blessings. You be blessed with so many more years that we can hear for the rest of our lives from you. That please, therefore, being blessed with many years, explain to us not just all that you have read in an easily understandable way, because you might have a great intelligence, but explain it in a very easily understandable way. And what are you going to explain to us? Whatever you have ascertained to be the absolute and ultimate good for all people in general. Don't explain everything you have learned. We don't have time for that or ability to understand that. So we are not just asking these questions for our own benefit, for all people's benefit. So tell us, what is the absolute and ultimate thing that is good, Shreyas, for all people? You might know a lot, and that is why we are saying, just tell us what is you consider as essence, because you are very learned. Learned person means he should be able to get the essence of what he is reading. It's not just the amount of information he knows, but he also knows the essence of everything that he has studied. And then in the 10th verse, they are saying, before asking further, they are saying, why you're only asking the ultimate and absolute good? Why are you asking only very limited things? He says, oh, Suta Goswami, in the age of Kali that is coming, because of which we are doing the sacrifice, people are not, they don't have a long life. They have very short life. So we are asking for them. So whatever you say should be easily able for them to be able to hear and chant and repeat and understand and apply. So they're very quarrelsome, because once they are quarrelsome, all their attention is taken away. They don't have any more attention to give. They're always quarrelsome. But even if they are not quarreling, then they become lazy. Even if they are not quarrelsome, if they are not lazy, they are actually active. Still, they can get misguided. They may be active, but they get misguided because of their passion. And even if they have goodness and they are acting actively in a proper way, still they can become unlucky, because they may get some cheating kind of religion. They may get some kind of spiritual knowledge which actually does not give them the real things. Above all, they are always disturbed. So they have predicted the invention of smartphones already in the 10th verse. So we are always disturbed in this age. So they are saying all these qualifications of Kali Yuga. Our profile, like what do you call, like our biodata is given in this verse 10. Okay, who are we? What is our qualifications? Everything is listed in this one verse. And then they say that is why, Suta Goswami, there are many varieties of scriptures. And there are so many different kinds of prescribed duties given in those, like which yagya you will do, which puja you will do, which prayaschitta you will do. There's so many things. And first of all, knowing them, it will take many years of study. And still, who will do all of those things in the age of Kali? Therefore, he says, please select the essence of all these scriptures and explain it for the good of all living beings, that by such instruction their hearts may be fully satisfied. Because ultimately, the purpose of engaging in everything is that we develop satisfaction of heart. What's the use of conquering the whole world and not feeling satisfied internally? That's why they're saying, you may hear so much knowledge, so many verses, so many scriptures, puja, vrat, part, and so many rules, rituals, everything is there. But ultimately, all of these is supposed to give satisfaction of the heart. And that is only possible when they when they practice bhakti. So that is why he says, Ena Atma Suprasidati. It's where, that's how they ask the question. Ena Atma Suprasidati. How can the soul can be fully satisfied? Suprasidati means not just prasida, means satisfaction. Suprasidati, fully satisfied. And then they give blessings to again Sutta Goswami. They say, oh, all blessings upon you, Sutta Goswami. Please, you know the purpose. You are so great. You know the purpose of the Supreme Lord's appearance in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva. So please give. Why did Lord Krishna appear? Sundar Gopal Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I just had a question. If you look at, can you go back? So
Yes.
yeah, this text 10, our biodata for everyone in Kali Yuga. If you compare text 10 with text 2, so this here they're saying that everyone is always disturbed. It makes perfect sense, right? We're always in anxiety, running from here or there. We're always disturbed. But then to even understand Bhagavatam or to be able to benefit from Bhagavatam, text 2 was very clear.
Nirmatsaranam, Shushru, Shrubi, Takshanat, all these qualifications that is
So it
expected.
sounds like they contrast each other, right? Like someone who will really benefit from Bhagavatam has to have those qualities. And text 10 says, none of us in this age, anyways, like how will we benefit, right? If we're so disturbed, that attentive, submissive hearing to really gain the benefit of Bhagavatam will, right?
3 levels of audiences also, that we may not be right on that very highest level of having bhava or prema, or even having nirmatsaranam, being non-envious. However, the Kali Yuga, our abilities have been like contaminated, but it is not that we have lost our ability to become pure, because the soul is eternally pure. It has become difficult for us to become pure and focused, but it is not that we don't have the ability to be focused. The influence of influence of ignorance and passion is so high that we have forgot how to be focused. But it is not that we don't have the ability to be focused. So if through the practice of bhakti, the more the sattva is increased, we can gradually uncover our original nature. But to start, that is why again the qualification to start is not too high. Some amount of faith, some amount of attention. So it's like you invest, you get some interest, your capital increases. So then that gives you further interest. So gradually it goes. The free will of the desire, the free will and the desire of the living entity is the primary investment. Without that, Krishna can't do anything with us. He can only give all kinds of, like they say, right? You can only take the horse to the river. You cannot make it drink. So he has made all the arrangements for us, and then he sits and waits. Okay, if the living entity develops desire, then he is ready to take from there gradually.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And
I'm still thinking, but yes, thank you.
Thank you. Mother Gail?
Yes, the way I'm understanding what you just explained is it reminds me of the way to go from Namapara to Shudanam is just to keep chanting, right? So similarly, it seems that even if we're not so qualified when beginning to hear the Bhagavatam, if you just go on hearing it, that hearing itself will purify you and elevate you so that you do eventually exhibit those qualities. Yeah. So in the beginning, all we need is a desire to hear, some level of desire, right?
Yes.
And then just by hearing, you might even be filled with envy and all anarthas, but simply by continuing to hear, those qualities will evaporate, no?
That's true. Exactly, you're repeating what Rupa Goswami says in Nectar of Instruction. In the 7th, 8th verse, he says that how the qualities and the glories of Krishna and the name is all like going to taste like a bitter for the tongue, which is the covered with the jaundice of material ignorance. So, which is the nature of all the conditioned souls in this world. But eventually, the only qualification is okay, like I do it regularly and I will follow that prescription. So then gradually taste is uncovered. But our inability to follow the prescription nobody can do anything about it. If I say, oh, I don't have the strength to follow the prescription, then we need to take shelter of again devotee, some or other, because the ability is there. It just our desire is sometimes weak, our determination is weak. So determination is not a function of intention. Oh, I want to be a devotee. That is an intention. But determination does not come from intention. Determination comes from purification of the heart. So that is why there needs the spiritual element. A lot of people make resolutions but cannot keep up, because it is just a matter of, if it was only a matter of intention, we all would be pure devotees. So the determination is not a function of intention. It is a product of purification. So the more we get purified, then the more determination is we develop. And if the determination is not developing, there is something problem the way we are applying ourselves to the process.
And so the determination, which is not a product of intention, that determination, we would say, comes from like association of the devotees, and again, hearing from Bhagavatam, no? Like these two things.
Yes.
Which is also, so hearing from the Bhagavatam is also association with the devotees. So basically, you just have to associate, right?
Yes. Some desire needs to be there from that is our what do you call, endeavor. There needs to be some endeavor. Like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains this beautiful story. He says a few people, like a guy fell into into a well. So the other person actually drops him a rope. Okay, catch this rope and I will bring you out. You just hold on to the rope. He says, no, can someone lift my hands and then make my hands like catch that rope? No, like at least that much one has to do. Then the person is ready to pull the guy out of the well, but at least he needs to hold on to that rope. So if we say, oh, I don't have enough determination to hold on to the rope, then there's no one who can help us actually.
Nobody can pull themselves out.
Yeah.
So you have to show interest in wanting to come out, do something.
So we are all in our own well in our mind. Others cannot come into our mind. So that person cannot jump into the well and then make his hand go around and wrap around he cannot just tie his hand like that, because we live in our own minds. Other person cannot enter into our mind. So we live in the well of our mind. So we need to actually develop that determination. When the holy name comes, that's like a rope. When Bhagavatam comes, that's like a rope. When the Guru's instruction comes, that's like a rope. But if I say, oh, I don't have determination to hold on to that rope, then nobody can do anything.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes.
My question was just to confirm my understanding of what you had explained a little while ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gaushan Prabhu, that was an amazingly powerful point. Determination is not from intention, because I thought that's how it is, but you said it's from purification. Most beautiful spiritual instruction of 2025.
For me also. Thank you. So now they asked 2 questions already about the essence and the ultimate good, and third question, purpose. So now they're going to just speak in general, glorify, and then ask the further questions. So we eager to learn about the Supreme Lord and his incarnation. So please explain to us, because these things will uplift people, Shemaya and Bhava, and they also continue to glorify. In what way the names and the glories of the Supreme Lord has this uplifting potency? It says, even if a person unconsciously chants the holy name, then that person can be delivered from the greatest fear of death and birth and death, that samsara cycle, as exhibited in Ajamila's case. And this will be again explained in the Bhagavatam, further in the chapters, all these things. And they say a person may be taking bath in Ganga for a very long time. Still, that person may get rid of sins, but may not develop devotion always. May take a very long time for that. But when they come in touch with a devotee, the devotee is such a powerful, like 10x, 100x, 1000x. Like we say, sometimes we see detergents, right? 10x, 2x, 5x, like that. The devotees in comparison with Ganges are like 1000x, even millions x, because just by lavamatra sadhu sangha, like a few moments of association can pierce through the ignorance of millions of lifetimes. So that is the ability of a pure devotee, one who has taken complete shelter of the Supreme Lord. This purity that they have, the devotion that they have in their hearts, is much more powerful than the water that washes the Supreme Lord's lotus feet itself. We cannot just speak Ganges just like that. We cannot speak about Ganga, because that is a water that has washed the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. But it is the devotee who carries the Lord in his heart. The same lotus feet is considered even more powerful, because Ganges does not interfere with our free will so quickly. But the devotees don't care. Their purity actually interferes with our free will to a large extent. It influences, it makes it very much more reliable, because it's more active. The devotion in the heart of the devotee is much more, powerful and active and alive and potent. And then that's why they're saying, who is there in this world that's such a person that he will not be willing to hear the virtuous glories of the Lord? They're indirectly glorifying Suta Goswami, inspiring him, speak more. Why will we not, who understand so much about all these glories, will not be eager to hear? Please, we are very eager to hear. And please, therefore, speak to us. the adventures that the Supreme Lord performs in his various incarnations. Especially they use the word, the kala means in terms of material creation. Jiva Goswami says this words actually refers to the incarnations which are actually guna avatars, Purusha avatars, like the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Mahavishnu, and Shirodakshay Vishnu. They are also incarnations of the Lord, but they are specific incarnations of Purusha, that they engage in the adventure of creating the material and maintaining the material world. And then they say, oh, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the multiple incarnations of the Supreme Lord. Krishna has taken so many, the absolute truth, Supreme Godhead has taken so many incarnations. Please explain all the adventures and pastimes of the Lord. We never tire hearing. You may think, oh, my incarnations are so many. How will I describe all of them? That's why they said, don't worry. We are never tired of hearing about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. We have developed a taste, so we can always continue to hear. And specifically, they say in the verse 20, he may start speaking about all kinds of incarnations. That's why they are bringing in Krishna very specifically here. Lord Krishna, along with Balram, played like a human being so many superhuman acts. The idea is, please speak about them also. That's what we are specifically eager to hear, the pastimes of Krishna. And since Kali has begun, we have come here to this place completely. We have dedicated. We have no other job. We don't have a cell phone which is ringing, giving us notification that we have something to attend to. Nothing. We have fully renounced everything and assembled here 100% with all our attention just to hear at great length the transcendental message of Baba. So that is how we want to perform this sacrifice. So we are very grateful that we have found you by the will of providence, by Krishna has blessed us with your presence, that please help us cross over this ocean of Kali. And how they say Kali is what is the nature of Kali? It deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. If you have any sattva guna, it will first, what it will do is, it will sattvam haram pumsam. It will actually take the existence, it will take the lifetime, the duration of life, it will take away. It will take away the mode of goodness. It will take away the good qualities of a human being. Sattva haram pumsam, that is the quality of Kali. So that's why our fight against Kali means to preserve our goodness, to preserve our good qualities. And he says, since Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, has departed, then in this age where all the good qualities are going to go away, then there will be no place for Dharma. Dharma cannot just exist in thin air. Dharma exists in the people who practice Dharma. That's why it is said, those who give shelter to Dharma are sheltered by Dharma. But the problem is the good qualities are going to go away from people. So they won't be able to give shelter to Dharma. And first of all, they don't have the Supreme Lord who was that supreme shelter from whom they received. So where has Dharma taken shelter? Because without Dharma, there is no human life. Without human life, there is no spiritual life. And without spiritual life, it's again animal life. So where has Dharma taken shelter? That's why they are worrying about Dharma, because without that, there will be no deliverance. And quickly, give me a few more minutes. I'll complete this. I wanted to discuss a lot, but I don't think we will do that. The overall book context there are 10 topics of Bhagavatam, which we discussed in the orientation. Starts with creation, secondary creation, sustenance, protection, inclinations, Manvantaras and the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees, dissolution, liberation, ashraya. And if you see, whenever we read a chapter in your own time, you can look at these 10 topics and think, what are the topics touched upon in this verse? Usually all the topics are touched. Sometimes some of them, sometimes more, all of them, it can differ. So just meditate. Okay, what are the different topics touched upon in this chapter? If we think, we have questions about creation, we have questions about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, Ishanukata, and we also questions about Krishna himself directly, Ashraya. At least these three main topics of the 10 topics of Bhagavatam are addressed right in the chapter 1. In that sense, the chapter 1, verse Bhagavatam addresses all the topics in one sense. And we also saw how Canto 1 speaks about Adhikari Tattva, who's qualified to hear, who's qualified to speak. What is the best sadhya? What is the actual goal? What is the actual process to achieve that goal? So that is all discussed in chapter 1 also. That qualifications of Suta Goswami and Saunakadi Rishis gives us Adhikari Tattva. They ask about ultimate good for all humanity, which is the ultimate object, Uttama Sadhya, essence of all scriptures. And where has Dharma taken shelter after Krishna? Why did Krishna appear? All these questions are about either Uttama Sadhya or Uttama Sadhana. And in terms of Tattva context, we saw that how Bhagavatam has Sambandha, Abhidaya, and Prayojana knowledge. Knowledge about our connection with Krishna, knowledge how to do devotional service, and what is the benefit from that. So here we see in that context, we have the understanding of guru-disciple relationship, hearing from knowledge from guru. That's how we develop sambandha. If you want to know about Krishna, then you need to hear from the bona fide sources. And their eagerness to hear. How to hear though? Hearing is the sambandha, it gives you sambandha, but how to hear, that eagerness we see in the sages. And prayojana is what is the ultimate good for all humanity, that is also asked. So in this way, whenever you read a chapter, you can pick up all these overall book level context, the canto level context, chapter level context. So if you read with all that, then the chapters make more sense. So far today we saw the broad divisions of the chapter 1, how it gives the introduction and outer layer of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the verse flow layout, and the translations of the chapter 1, and the thematic understanding of chapter 1. For you to meditate on chapter 1 for the next week, excuse me. While you continue to read the translations of chapter 2 and 3, please also meditate on this topic that we can derive from chapter 1, that if you want to tune your heart, you need to hear. Hearing is the way to tune the heart, and that is how we will be able to chant better. So hearing shapes the mind. Danudar Maharaj always says, good mind is the mind that hears to good thoughts. So good hearing creates good mind, then good mind will let us chant better. So interact with Srimad Bhagavatam. It could be a verse, it could be a word, it could be a few lines of the purport. Just, you may read a whole chapter as a sadhana, but still take a moment to just read something with focused attention, with prayerful reading, and then think about it, meditate on it, and see if it is going to, what it can speak to you, and what you want to think now, what you want to carry from that particular inspiration. So try for the next week that how your hearing, how is your hearing, focus on it. What are you hearing, and how much are you hearing, and what kind of quality is your hearing? So then the quality of both in terms of our attention quality and also in terms of the content quality, what we are hearing, and you see how it's shaping your mind and heart, and how you have the ability to actually shape your mind and heart by hearing the right things, and also interact with Bhagavatam in a more prayerful way, and see how it can help you chant better. And so with this meditation, I'll leave you here for the next week. So thank you very much for again coming together and hearing, and thank you for this opportunity.